rotates with the Earth. That's a rotating system, that's a rotating frame. That's something that is called a non-inertial frame, and that's something that you learn how to deal with when in the first weeks of the physics course. And what happens is that in that frame, in that rotating frame, you are like when you're taking your axis, so say Cartesian axis or whatever, on a rotating merry-go-round or something like that. You can do that. You can always do that. You're always allowed to do that. The only thing that you have to take into account when you're describing physics there is that the laws of physics, the Newton's laws of physics, have to be modified, introducing things that are called inertial or fictitious forces, such as centrifugal and Coriolis force. These are the only things that you need to take into account when you are dealing with a rotating frame. And apart from that, everything is perfectly the same as in an inertial frame. So from this point of view, the plane is moving in a frame where the forces that have to be taken into account dynamically are gravity force, wind and air resistance and drag, and then the thrust and lift and whatever forces the engines are applying to the air, right? And in that frame and in that description, you are moving on a stationary Earth with, on average, a stationary atmosphere. The only thing that changes with respect to a really stationary framework is that you have to take into account the effect of centrifugal force, which is really tiny. It's a fraction of a percent of gravity, and Coriolis force, which is dependent on velocity, and which you can compute. You can compute it, and it's in the order of the acceleration that you need to impress to the plane in order to account for Coriolis force is in the order of the velocity, relative velocity of the plane with respect to the Earth times the angular velocity of Earth. So it's v times omega and as order of magnitude. And you compute how much that is, and you see that it's really not relevant. It's really much smaller than the wind effect and other things like that. So what planes do is to move with respect to local air, to the local bulk of air that may be influenced by wind and so on, and that's what the engines are doing. And that's the thing. You don't have things like you cannot use, or at least you can invoke things such as conservation of momentum, but very, very carefully, because momentum is conserved when no external force is applied, which is absolutely not the case in case of plane, because you have a number of external forces, which are gravity, which is air resistance, engines, and so on. So it's not a momentum conserving system, an airplane, and so invoking conservation of momentum is not really useful, or it needs to be done with a very precisely, and the context must be explicit and has to be specified. But I have another way of objecting to what you're saying. What about this? Something that goes against your common sense in looking at and how big the change in velocity is supposed to be when going from the pole to the equator. Just think of a person standing at the equator without even having to take a plane. A person who is standing or sitting in their house somewhere at the equator, right, in Ecuador or something in South America or in Africa or wherever you please. That person is in so-called what you call a globe model is traveling around, is moving in a circle around the axis around the center of the Earth at 1,000 miles per hour. As I prefer to use kilometers per second or kilometers per hour, but or meters per second. But okay, whatever the units you want to use, that the change in that velocity, in the vector velocity, because when you deal with forces and accelerations, you need to use vectors. So the change in that vector velocity is in half a day. It changes. So in 12 hours, that velocity changes by twice, because it's 1,000 miles per hour in one direction at say noon, and then at midnight it's the same amount, but the other way around. So it's the vector change is twice that, and the person is standing perfectly still. So what is the force that caused that person? Does the person have to be aware of a force, of a terrible force that they have to apply on themselves in order to change from 1,000 miles per hour in one direction to 1,000 miles per hour in the opposite direction? So it changes by 2,000 in the space of 12 hours. That's a huge acceleration. How do they do that without even taking into account the plane? It's that same kind of reasoning. You don't even have to use planes, right? And how do you explain that? Do they apply any forces? No. The explanation is that they are standing in a rotating frame. The only thing, so they do not move, because in that rotating frame, all the forces that are applied on the person, including centrifugal and Coriolis, which is zero because the relative velocity is zero. So you have a gravitational force towards the center of the Earth, you have a reaction force by the floor, and then you have centrifugal force, which changes by a tiny fraction of a percent the gravitational force, and then the balance, and the person is perfectly still in the frame that's rotating with the Earth. In the other frames, in another frame, they are rotating, they have an acceleration, and if you compute forces in that frame, they will be perfectly consistent. We'll have a centripetal force and so on. So everything, I'm sorry, but everything is consistent, and there's no problem whatsoever. The point is choosing the most convenient frame in order to describe things. In the rotating frame that's rotating with the Earth, the air is stationary. So since you're moving with respect to the air, then you don't have to take into account any force whatsoever, apart from the fictitious forces which are due to the frame not being inertial, and these are really small. These effects are really small, so they're taken into account by the small maneuvers that an airplane is doing. And so if you want an answer to what if I see the phenomenon and the movement of the plane from an inertial frame, say from an observer who is say on the sun and sees the world spinning around like this. By the way, not that fast, because it's one spin per day, so it's twice as slow as an hour hand on the clock. But anyway, it's that speed. How does the plane change its tangential velocity in that frame? It's because of the air that's moving, because the plane is moving with respect to the air. The air is rotating with the Earth, so it's the air that pushing that's providing that force. Exactly, because the person would have the same problem without even taking the plane into account, without even planes being around. If a person sees the Earth spinning and sees the atmosphere that's spinning with it, it says, wait a minute, the air is also spinning at that velocity. What is the force that provides that movement? Because it's accelerating. A circular movement. It's accelerating. The air has different speeds across the globe and so on. How's that possible? You have drags, you have gravity, a lot of things. You can explain everything, but it's not different than that. And once you have that, it's the same as you see a river flow, and then you have a I don't know, an insect or a fish or something moving with respect to water, and with respect to a person seeing the river flow and the fish moving with respect to water, then the fish will also get dragged by the water, and so the movement with respect to the stationary person will be different from what the fish actually does. Or an ant on a treadmill. The ant crosses without caring about the fact that the treadmill is going that direction, or a merry-go-round. They simply go on, and then if observed from the outside, we see that we get different tangential speeds or whatever. What are the forces that the ant applies? None, because the ant and the fish or whatever, they're moving with respect to the water, the treadmill, the merry-go-round. And the only effect is those.
Okay. Can I ask you a few things here? I want to know if we agree upon a couple things. So when a pilot
Yeah.
lands, no matter where the pilot's going to try to land on the Earth, right? He doesn't have to worry about the rotation. He can just always assume to treat the
No.
Earth as if it were stationary. Earth's not moving separately eastward at a different rate than the plane ever, right?
Yes. The only thing is the Coriolis force, which you can compute, and it's very, very, very small.
Yeah, it's so small that it could
It's
be
so-called
it could be
universe,
like hidden in the
universe
winds,
effect.
right? It's just hidden in the wind, so there's no reason to worry about the Coriolis force because it would be very small compared to the winds, right? So we don't even know if it's there or not because we're ignoring that, right?
No, we can measure it. You can measure it because there are things called Yotvers effects and something like that. You have you can measure it. You can see the effects of that, but they're really small. They're
Yeah,
small
but for
forces
a plane,
compared
yeah,
to.
for a plane, it would be so
Yeah,
much less than winds. It wouldn't even make sense to try to take it into account, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay, so we agree
precisely.
on
Yes.
that. So we're not worried about the Coriolis force. Even if there was one, it doesn't make any difference anyway for our scenario. But you understand what I laid out is that the pilot's taking off from a 500 mile per hour tangential velocity at that latitude, right? And you also said
Mm.
that the idea that the conserved momentum would stay with the plane is kind of ridiculous because there'd be so many other forces acting on the plane, causing the friction that would not make it stay at 500 miles per hour eastward automatically because all these other forces are, dealing with, affecting that original whatever conserved momentum is that you believe has been parted onto the plane. Whether it's there or not, we wouldn't even be able to tell because there's other winds going in opposite directions and the plane could be flying against the spin like in my scenario. So if it took off from a 500 mile per hour tangential velocity at that latitude and it flies west southwest against the spin the whole time, there's no course, right? He's just a joyriding pilot, right? He's going to do big loops. He might even go back to where he started from, and because he thought he forgot something, and then he's going to go back west southwest again. No aim. He's going to find a clearing somewhere on the equator, around the equator, where the ground's moving twice as fast as where it took off from. And we know that the pilot can just treat the Earth as stationary, regardless of any kind of tangential velocity gradient. But the ground is literally, for the globe model, moving twice as fast, or 500 miles per hour faster than where the plane took off from. But that's not accounted for by the pilot, and the wind's going all directions, and that's not a force that's moving his plane backwards when he's facing westward, landing at going down to 0 miles an hour. Now you have to think this air mass is carrying the plane backwards twice as fast as where it took off from. And the pilot has no idea that he's going 500 miles per hour backwards as he slows to a land to 0 miles an hour in the opposite direction. Somehow we have to believe the plane is just being carried backwards at 500 miles per hour, then down to 150 miles an hour, down to zero. And that whole time, we just think that the plane's being carried with the wind backwards. It's insane, dude.
Now, what is insane is the number of things you've said without construct. Without. I've
Without a
only heard
reference.
a huge number of numbers, but without any physics in it. The physics is you learn to deal with appropriate reference frames because they
The
are more
dynamics, the
convenient to
dynamics,
use.
not just the kinematics. The dynamics is what I'm talking about, not the kinematics.
Yeah, the dynamics is
Have to be explained.
F equals me.
Yeah, so the
F
force of the
equals the
wind, right?
dynamic.
But you understand, Franco, we've talked about this before, by the way. To say that the air mass is generally, on average, going with the surface isn't even good
Yeah.
enough. If that were true, it's not good enough to make the plane so in sync with 1,000 miles an hour that the pilot can always just assume that he's treating the Earth as perfectly stationary without the forces that would be moving the plane backwards that he would have to deal with. I mean, the aerodynamics wouldn't even work for the air to be pushing the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour as it's slowing to land in the
It's
opposite direction. There's no dynamics there. You can kinematically just say, well, the force is this, and we're going to put a number to it, and that's what it would have to be. So it has to be that because we're on a globe. That's ridiculous. There's no forces going on there.
no,
There's
not
no
that's not
dynamics at all
ridiculous
explained.
because that's physics, and I'm sorry, that's my field, and that I think I know about it. I think I give exams about it. So
No,
please,
you're just doing kinematics, not
please.
forces. Forces are physical.
No,
Physics is
no,
physical.
no,
You're not
it's
explaining the physics of it.
no,
You're
no,
not explaining how it physically happens. You're
no.
just saying, I'm going to put a number to it, and on paper, I can make it seem like it might work, but there's no forces that you're even naming would work. The air wouldn't be a force moving the plane backwards, carrying it backwards at 1,000 miles an hour. That's not a force you could ever even in any kind of sanity say is what's happening. The plane, to explain to a pilot that the air is carrying his plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour when he lands at the facing westward, he would laugh even if he thought he was on a globe because he knows he doesn't have to deal with any of that. He just flies point to point. There's no chasing the target, which would have to happen if it was a globe because it'd be moving faster at the destination than where he took off from. Those are the physics that are be involved. But he just flies straight to his target. Even if he's going west southwest, he's not even have to have a target. He's going to be able to treat the Earth as stationary, and you have to think the air is carrying the plane backwards, even though the plane has a motor going in opposite direction, slowing it down to land. You really believe that?
I couldn't follow. Sorry. What I
You believe
know
that
is physics.
the air is carrying the plane backwards as it lands in the opposite direction. The air is making it go at the same speed as the Earth. Do you believe the air is doing that?
Yes,
Okay, how do you
because
believe that with no dynamics
you're moving with respect to the air. You're moving with respect to the air,
in the opposite
right?
direction?
I don't care. If you go to the toilet when you're in a plane, and the plane is changing because it's steering and it's changing its velocity from I don't know how many kilometers per hour in that direction, and it takes a turn, and you're going to the toilet, and in that plane. Are you applying that terrible force that you need to in order to make that changing velocity yourself? No, because you're moving with respect to the plane, and the plane is doing that for you. So if you're
And I
moving with
have to,
respect to the
do I
air,
have
and the
to,
air is doing that,
Franco, do I
it's the
have to
same as
explain
if you're
to
in a rig.
I have to explain to a physics professor how that's a non sequitur and it's one reference frame inside the plane, as opposed to a non-inertial
No,
and
it's
inertial reference
not an
frame when we're
obstacle
talking
because
about the
everybody
plane
understands
compared to
that.
the Earth? It's
Except
totally
you.
different, totally
Everybody
non
understands
sequitur.
that.
I have to
There are
explain that to a
millions of people
professor
understanding this,
of
except
physics.
you, right? There are
No,
millions of
you're
people
saying it would be
understanding
the
this,
same,
except
and
you.
your
So it's not
physics
an
would tell you
obstacle.
it's not the
It's
same. It's totally not the same.
no. It's you take a physics course and you learn how to deal with things, right? That's the proper way of doing. So you
No, it's
learn what a
not.
reference
You're
frame
talking
is.
one reference
You
frame
learn
compared
what
to
a
two
reference
reference
frame is.
frames.
You learn how to make. First, you learn how to make kinematics, and then you learn how to apply dynamics on it. There's a step
Okay, take
process
that
that
step.
you learn,
Apply the
and you take
dynamics.
and you make
Don't
you
just
make them solve
don't
problems,
just come up with a kinematic
and you
concept. You need dynamics, bro. You need the dynamics. You can't say being inside
the
the closed
dynamic.
cabin of a plane. The closed cabin of the plane
Have you
is not
have you tried
comparable.
to
Are
explain
you
dynamic
saying
to
that
you?
the atmosphere of the Earth is like a closed cabin of a plane? Are you saying that's the correlation you're trying to
Yes,
make? Are you trying to make that correlation? Okay, so there's
yes,
no
yes. It
air.
is.
There's
Yes,
no
it is.
air blowing person backwards on inside the plane. But now you're saying there's air in the atmosphere making the plane go faster backwards at 1,000 miles an hour as it's slowing to a land in the opposite direction. Why is that comparative in any way to someone walking to the bathroom inside a closed cabin in one reference frame compared to the two reference frames that you as a physics professor would know would apply to the air and the plane and the earth all moving at different rates?
Again, you take you learn how to deal with reference frames. Okay, in the reference frames that's rotating, such as a merry-go-round, such as a I don't know, a spinning basketball and whatever. You place an ant on a basketball and make it spin, right? How is the ant changing its velocity? How dynamically? What dynamically makes the velocity of the ant change? What is the ant experiencing? Is the ant applying a terrible force because it's changing its velocity because it's changing as you spin it and you spin the basketball? No, it's not, because the ant is stationary with respect to the basketball, and the only thing the ant feels is the centrifugal force because you're applying a rotation. That's it. That's when you learn. That's what you learn when you learn what how to deal with rotation with non-inertial frames.
Oh,
That's
so
one
you're
of the first
saying you
things you
just
learn.
pretend it's like the plane is the ant that's actually on the basketball. So
Yes,
we're just
it
going to
is.
treat the
Yes, it is,
we're just
because
going
you
to we're just
learn,
going to
but you
assume to
learn how
treat
to deal with.
we're going to learn to just use reference frames to treat the air
Yes,
and the plane as if it were on the earth rather than above the earth moving in a separate reference frame. We're just going to mathematically or
you learn how to
kinematically
deal
choose a
with.
reference
You learn
frame and
how to deal with
say it
that.
works just fine because it's just like being on the earth even though he's separate from the earth. And that's why we would even talk about Coriolis force or any of that kind of stuff, because there would be a difference in tangential velocity as it goes north or south, or
Yes,
even worse for
yes.
you, west southwest. There'd be a difference
That's
that would have to be
precisely.
accounted for. And the winds are stronger than that for the Coriolis force, which I agree. It would be hidden in the winds for this Coriolis force that you pretend is there. But the problem is it would have to be moving twice as fast eastward. And if it goes west southwest, that means you have to believe there's a force acting on the plane to accelerate it twice as fast, which is totally different than the plane just being on the earth in the same reference frame, like you just explained, or someone being in a
Why?
cabin of a
Why?
plane, because they're in the same reference
Why?
frame. They're
Why
on
is
the
it
earth.
different?
What?
Why
Why?
is it
Why do
different?
you even
Why is it
talk
different
about?
when the plane is?
Why do they talk about conserved momentum when someone jumps up in the air? The reason that we're told that he stays with the rotation is because he was on the earth, not because he's in the air moving with the earth because the air is moving with the earth. It's because the conserved momentum supposedly
Can
comes
you?
from being on the earth, right? Not from being in the air and having it be the exact same. So when the tangential velocity changes and that conserved momentum is only half as much as what it would have to, the plane would have to be
When
moving
now
somehow in
I'm
this
asking you a
perfect
question.
sync. And they say that that the wind patterns themselves
Could you please?
are caused by the difference in
Could you
rotation
please tell me
of the
when?
atmosphere to the ground,
Could you
right?
please tell me
So there's a
when
difference
it makes
between the
sense?
atmosphere and the ground causing the weather patterns. So even if the air were moving the plane in perfect sync, it wouldn't be good enough
That's a
because
monologue.
the
Into
difference
end.
is already singled out by your model, saying it's at not the same rate. That's why we have the weather patterns. It's not the same rate, but it makes the plane in the same rate. You don't see the contradictions, Franco?
No, because I couldn't follow any of your rant. So
Okay,
what
hang on
is
a
No,
the
second.
you were
Just a
not
quick
listening. You were
announcement.
choosing not to listen.
Just a
what
quick announcement. Sorry to interrupt you, new
what
perspective. I'm following you all the way. I put a video in for your for the other guy. It's in the chat side chat explaining how planes don't take that curved trajectory, which would be necessary. But please carry on anyway.
And they couldn't even take that, even if they
so
were
when
correcting for it. They would, even if they were trying to correct for it, they couldn't if they're going west southwest. You can't correct the plane eastward if it's going the opposite direction. And there could be winds going heavier westward one day or heavier northward, and all of that has to be ignored as well because you're pretending the wind is going to be moving the plane backwards eastward directly, just the right amount for the pilot to treat the Earth as stationary. Which, as a physics professor, I can't even believe that you take yourself seriously saying that.
So let's start again. When is momentum conserved? Tell me what the law of conserving momentum is, of momentum conservation is. As I am now a professor, I'm asking you.
No, I'm not going to even. I'm not going to even sit in your classroom because you haven't named the force. We're talking about conserve momentum. I told you you can have all the 500 conserve momentum, even though you
When
agreed
is
already
momentum?
that if
We're talking
the
about
friction
conserved
from the air
momentum. We're talking
would
about conserved
delineate
momentum. So
that
when
automatically. But when
can we talk of conserved momentum?
what?
When is momentum conserved?
When is
You
it?
keep
When is
talking
it? What
about
are you talking
momentum
about? When
conservation.
is it?
When
You
is it?
want to try to make yourself? You want to be the teacher now when I just schooled you? No, not happening,
Yes,
bro.
I want to be the teacher now. Yes, because I am one.
No.
Yeah.
You
The
can
I'm a
conservation of
teach.
physicist, and
momentum.
You can teach and I'll listen, but I'm
Conservation
not
of
taking your.
momentum is
I
You haven't.
limited.
claim that you don't
No,
know
no, no. Wait,
basic physics.
Franco. I'm just going to say you haven't earned my position as a student. You can say whatever you want, try to teach, but I'm not taking your quizzes.
Okay, so I'm not
You have no
taking your
dynamics.
objections because I claim that you don't know basic physics. So your physics-based objections are invalid because they're demonstrably not based on physics.
They're based
I
on
know what physics
physics.
is.
Conservation of
I
conservation of momentum is
so
limited.
it is my job to judge that your
You did your job to
knowledge of
judge, but
basic physics is limited.
you have no physics at all in your answer. You're just saying it would generally be going at the same rate backwards, and
Yeah.
that's fine. I didn't contradict my. There's nothing I've contradicted myself with. I just believe it's
I have
going
no
eastward.
physics.
At that, there's no dynamics to anything I'm saying. I'm saying if you went back and listened to yourself, Franco, it would be. I hope you'd be embarrassed. Otherwise, that'd be kind of insulting to think you wouldn't be.
No,
That would
no.
be that means that you would actually believe everything you just said, which was just babble.
Franco is
I
You were
don't
totally
just
kidding you,
believe
bro.
babbling.
everything I just said.
Bro, Franco is
I
totally kidding
believe
you.
everything.
Just want to put that out
Not
there.
only me. I'm not the only one believing what I say. It's millions of people across the globe, and you're the only one that
Oh
does not believe
Yeah,
it. And
no,
guess what?
I'm also on
What
New
basic physics?
Perspective side. So there's two of us here,
Yeah,
and an
this
appeal to
is
consensus
ridiculous.
doesn't make it correct.
It's not an appeal to consensus.
There's
It's an
not even.
appeal
He
to
didn't even
physics.
try to
To
name
know
a
You're
force.
appealing to consensus, sir.
and to knowing what
Hey
we're
Jen,
talking about.
he tried to say
It's an
that
appeal to
walking to the
believe
bathroom on the
what we're
plane
talking
is the same thing. So that's the physics
Yeah, I
professor
know.
telling
I
you
heard him. I
walking
heard
on
him.
the plane
I
is like
cringed.
a plane over the earth, which is ridiculous. It's not even like a physics professor saying that. I'm not taking your class, bro.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's
It's
desperate.
basically the same
Yes.
thing, dude. It's the same thing.
It's not. It's not the same thing, man.
So,
Look,
so,
No, it is.
so
It is.
it's not
let's
the
take
same thing.
another
It's not the
example.
No,
same
it is
thing.
the
Let's take
same
That's
thing.
another
hilarious
example.
that you're saying that, though.
You,
It
you
is
want
the same thing.
something that is not on Earth,
Not the
that
same
is
at all.
separate from Earth.
Absolutely not.
Take a balloon. You take a balloon, a simple balloon, the one that the children hold. You hold it on a place, I don't know, where you are, or at the equator for simplicity again. But that balloon is changing its velocity twice. It's going twice the velocity in one particular direction is changing by twice the amount in half a day. So it's going 1,000 miles per hour at noon. At midnight, the same balloon, which is held by the same very patient child, is going in the inertial frame. It's going at a minus
Never been proven.
1,000
Been proven.
miles per hour
Never been
the other
proven.
direction. It's changed its velocity by 2,000 miles
What
per
you've
hour
stated
That's
has
so
never
of
funny.
been
hours.
proven
So
and never been
what?
demonstrated. Never been demonstrated.
But
You're
it's the
telling
same
me
objection as
I've
yours.
never witnessed it with my own eyes. And the conservation of momentum is limited. I've seen a truck, a pickup truck with a trampoline, on a trailer, and the man is bouncing up and down, right? And they're keeping it at a certain speed, okay? So he can return, right? That's a slow speed. You accelerate that speed, the conservation of momentum that he had would be lost. It's
Yeah,
limited,
it's
sir.
one linear. Plus, it's one
Limited.
linear motion. It's one linear motion with that
Yeah, but
example. And
the
they try to
spin of the
say
Earth
one
isn't
linear motion is
accelerating.
fine. You could say one linear motion with a guy on a trampoline is the same as if the plane was totally detached from the Earth and was supposed to have a Coriolis force because it's detached from the Earth, and so it would have to compensate for that. But the winds are so much stronger, it doesn't have to compensate for that. But at the same time, there would be a 500 mile per hour increase in tangential velocity that we assume the plane has, even though there's no force named or any kind of method at all to that happening. And the pilot is not aware and doesn't have nothing to do with any kind of flying mechanisms that he imparts. He just treats the Earth as stationary, and somehow the air, we're going to just like pretend the air only goes in one direction and makes that possible, even though we know air goes in all directions. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, new perspective. New
Again,
Yeah,
perspective.
it would be
again,
even more
you don't
frightening
need
to be
planes.
a pilot today
You
if that
don't
was the
need
case.
planes to do that, to make
All
that
right,
objection. You don't need planes to make
everybody,
that
shut the
objection
fuck up.
because you
I
can
don't give
use
a fuck.
this.
I'm a free goddamn American, and the Earth is flat. If I say it's flat, I don't give a fuck. I am
Okay.
free enough to say that.
That doesn't have anything to do with what
Okay.
you say.
You're free enough to say
It's
that.
either stationary or it's
And you're
not
free.
stationary.
Thank you very much.
Whether
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
says it or not, it
You're
doesn't
free to
matter.
say anything you want.
New perspective. I'm curious because what you're saying here is you're saying that the pilot would have to account for changes in the speed or in their direction or whatever. Have you got any
No,
maths that
I'm not saying
actually
the
backs that
pilot would
up?
have
Like,
to. I'm saying something would have to. Whether you think it's the air or
okay,
the pilot, there would
well,
have to be a force
yeah,
there
what,
making the plane go
can you?
faster eastward, backwards.
You're saying that. Yeah, I heard you say that. But where's your maths that backs that up? Because you're saying that over a 10-hour flight, the pilot would have to change from 1,000 meters, 1,000 kilometers an hour down
Yeah.
to zero or whatever if they flew to the poles. Where's your maths to back that up? Because I'd
Well,
like
in
to
There's
that,
no
see what
in
math.
that,
this
in
like.
There's
that
no
regard,
math.
yeah.
The pilot
Hang on a
doesn't do
second,
any
in
math.
perspective. Hang
The
on,
pilot
Dave.
does no
Hang on,
math.
Dave.
Wait, the
In that,
pilot
in that
treats the
regard,
Earth as
I've
stationary. The
posted a
pilot,
video.
Yeah,
there is
okay. But
there
you're
is no
saying that if they
difference.
treat
video
it
There
as
is no
stationary,
difference.
why not?
According to
I've
the
actually
pilot,
posted your video.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
you're saying that.
posted-
But what I'm
Right,
saying,
thank
for
you.
your perspective,
I've
is
actually posted
I'm
your
asking you
video, mate.
for your
I've
maths
posted
that
the
they
video
don't
in the
need to
chat.
just treat it as perspective,
All right, thank you.
as statement. Show
You
me your
realize
maths
that
that you
it's not about
Yeah,
the,
I've
it's not about the
posted the video
gradual.
in the chat with the maps.
Thank
I've
you, Jen.
posted it
I'm
in the
just saying.
video.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
that whoever's asking for the mass, there's no mass. He doesn't account for there is no accounting for this eastward tangential velocity gradient. There's nothing that the
Yeah,
pilot's
but show
aware.
me.
There's
I
nothing
know there's
about the
not.
flight
I know there's
path.
not.
None of
But
that
show
is
me that they would need to. But show me that they would
no.
need to. You're saying
Well, the
they
globe says
don't,
it
and
would
that
need to.
proves.
The globe
No,
says it's
listen,
moving a thousand miles an hour,
No,
which would be a difference than where it took off from.
respectful.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I know
saying
you're
it would
talking a
need to
lot.
because
Listen,
I made that up. The globe
look,
requires that.
you need to stop talking so that you can hear because you're not listening. You are saying that there is no accounting for it, and that disproves the globe. And I'm saying, okay, demonstrate that what you have just said is true. Show me the maths that what you have just said is true. Show me that a pilot would need to account
Right.
for it. Show me the
Yeah.
maths. Where is your math?
And I've been trying
Hold
to
on,
show you.
hold on.
I'm
Hang on a
I'm
second.
going
I've
to
been
respond to
trying
this
to
guy.
show you that the
Jen,
video is
no,
inside.
let me respond to this guy real quick, Jen,
I'm not
please.
talking to you.
I'm not, the maths are in the globe model. The globe model says the tangential velocity is 1,000 miles an hour around that at the equator. This says that it tapers up to zero at the poles. That's what the globe model says. That's your maths right there. It would have to be going faster to be in sync at the equator. That's just what the globe says.
Okay, so show me how much a pilot would have to account for that over a flight from the equator to the poles, and pick an actual flight.
I'm telling you,
using
the video is in the chat.
no. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, but I'm
Jen,
I'm not
let me do
talking to
this,
you.
please. He's talking to me. Jen, please don't butt in, Jen, please. What I'm saying is that I've got the numbers. I can look them up, and it's a gradual thing. And the pilot doesn't do anything about that. And it's not even the claim of the globe or any kind of air flight manuals that the pilot is accounting for this. Right? That's not the claim. They just fly straight to their target and land as if, in quotes, it's stationary, regardless if the globe model says that it has to be going eastward faster. The pilot wouldn't even be making that a difference up when his trajectory of the plane. The reason I make it west southwest, so that's very clear, because no corrections could be made on the pilot's part to go faster eastward when he's going against the spin, but also west southwest. There'd be no way for him to even do the corrections, even if that were what's necessary. So you guys have to say it's the air mass somehow making the plane go faster because it's generally in sync with the Earth, or thought to be at least, even though air mass is pushing the plane would be a wind, and we also agree winds go in all directions. So that just doesn't work.
But no, I don't think we do. I don't think that. But that's not a steel man of the globe model. The globe model doesn't say that winds go in all directions. They
only
equally
go one direction in the globe model. The winds go in one direction.
No. Listen. You're talking and you're not listening, and this is a real problem for you.
Okay,
apparently,
go ahead.
The globe model doesn't say. The globe model doesn't say that wind goes in all directions equally in a still frame of reference.
I didn't say equally. I never said that equally. Why'd you
so then saying, I'm not strawmanning you. I'm confirming what the globe model says. I'm not strawmanning you because I'm not talking about your model.
It doesn't say winds go in all directions equally. I never said it goes in all directions equally. There's no way to predict which way the winds go. It changes on a daily, hourly basis, right?
Well, that's not true. You can look up weather predictions, and you can see predictions for which way the winds.
An average, right? You can get an average, but that doesn't mean that's predictable.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. You can't say it's precise. An average means it's not precise.
Sorry, can I say something? Then I will leave.
It doesn't work for you anyway. You can have your wind. It wouldn't work dynamically.
But it does work. I know, but it does work.
Oh, it does. So you're claiming the pilot makes no adjustments. The air makes the plane go 1,000 miles an hour backwards as the pilot's facing westward to land and come and slowing the plane down to 0 miles an hour. And then the air is just moving the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour. If you believe that, you can. There's no dynamics. There's no dynamic explanation to that. And if you believe it, then I don't know what to say. I mean, there's no physics to that whatsoever.
The new perspective.
Can I make my point one last time before I leave? I have to leave, so I will make my point one last time. Can I?
Yeah, you can try.
You can laugh at it, but okay. I'm just suggesting that you drop the plane thing because again, you can just use a child with a balloon. The child with a balloon. Okay, it's here. Suppose this is the equator. This is going. Yeah. You can laugh at it.
But it's the same thing. A child with a balloon. It's going. Let's not talk about planes.
It's a stationary balloon held by a child at the equator, right? And then that balloon is spinning, is moving in this direction at 1,000 miles per hour at noon, and it's moving the other direction at midnight. After half a day, after 12 hours, it's going 1,000 miles per hour this direction. So the difference between this and this is 2,000 miles per hour in 12 hours. So that is a huge acceleration.
What are you talking about? Why would it be going the opposite direction?
What is the force? What is the force that has made the balloon change its velocity by that huge amount? It's 2,000 miles per hour's difference. It's twice the difference. No need to go to change latitude. You stay at the same latitude and wait half a day, and then you change your velocity is changed. Your velocity. Your velocity. Your vector velocity has changed by twice the amount. How come? And that's stationary with respect to the Earth. That's a balloon. That's separate from the Earth. That's not on Earth. And what is dynamics for that?
What's your question now?
Explain
why is it stationary but supposedly going 2,000 miles an hour?
I'm saying that this has the same argument as the plane. It's much less complicated because you don't.
No, it's not.
You're much
it's
less
not the same argument at all.
I
don't even know what the argument is. What you're saying right now is completely ridiculous. What? It's going 1,000 miles an hour at noon and it goes the opposite direction at midnight, and it's a child with a balloon, and it's just the same as a plane having to land with the tangential velocity matching the Earth. That's not at all. That's not at all comparable. I hope you don't
same objection to
those kind of comparisons.
Can I speak? Yeah, as usual, you're not listening. It's the same kind of reasoning. I'm showing you. It's the same kind of logic. The same kind of reasoning. This balloon has one velocity here and one velocity there. 12 hours later, and it's changed its velocity by 2,000 miles per hour. So
it seems stationary. Your point is that it seems stationary, but it's changed. It's changed 2,000 miles an hour, even though it seems completely stationary relative to the person with the balloon. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it could either be that it's actually stationary. It could be that none of that happened and it's actually stationary. Right, Franco, let me just clarify. It could be that it could be the person's actually stationary and none of that happened, or all of that happened and it seems stationary anyway. Right? So that's how you're getting out of like your way of thinking about this. Like It could all happen
I'm
mathematically, and no
saying
one would
that
know.
this time,
It would just seem stationary regardless of what happens. That's ridiculous.
I'm saying, I'm saying that what is ridiculous is your ignorance in physics. But one thing is,
Oh yeah, I have
if
ignorance.
you want to
Okay.
use that objection of changing velocity, if you want to use the objection of changing velocity during from some instant, from some time to another on Earth, then you can use the balloon one. No need to go into complicated things such as
Oh, no need to make it
airplane
complicated,
trajectory.
so I
Just use
can't
the
answer
balloon.
is what you're
Because the
saying.
balloon
Make it a
changes the
balloon, a
velocity
child with a
by a
balloon.
lot more.
Just make it
But
a child with a balloon. Forget about the
the
planes because I have
balloon,
no answer for
the
planes.
balloon
Planes are
in
like a life and death situation. Let's make it a happier scenario where the little girl has a balloon and everything could be going on, even though it's totally stationary relative to her and it doesn't even matter. It could be all these different speeds. And don't worry about planes because that's actually some kind of physical thing I have to have an
yeah,
explanation for. Physics, it doesn't even make any sense. So I'm going to change the scenario. Just use a balloon. What kind of gaslighting is that?
yeah, because it's the same logic. Because it's the same logic
It's
you're
not the
using.
same
Same
logic. If you
logic you're
think it is,
using.
that's
If the
hilarious. But
argument is the change, no, it's not hilarious. The hilarious
it's
thing is
hilarious
your
to me.
objection, because your objection
And anyone listening.
is the same thing as the balloon. Is the balloon? Yeah.
That's pretty
Okay,
legit
you're
to
not
me and
listening.
very
Then you don't
reasonable.
know physics.
Oh,
Sorry.
really? You're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
jump on
You
that
don't
boat?
know physics.
That's who said it's the
Yeah,
same.
I'm jumping on
Who
that
said
boat.
it makes sense? Who wants to join him on that? Who's
Oh yeah, it
volunteering to
makes
agree
total
with what
sense
he
to me.
said? Who's that?
Oh yeah, 100%.
What's
My
your
name's
name?
Rick. How you doing, mate? My name's
Hey,
Rick,
Rick.
man. How about you?
Are you the one that was wait? You're the same icons that was talking before lit up. I guess it's not the same person that was talking about
What what
doing the
what a
math.
crazy coincidence.
Is it the same person? You sound totally different.
Anyway, just a suggestion.
That's the
You
same
don't need
person, man.
planes. You
What
just
are you
use the
talking about?
balloon. It's exactly the same thing. You don't have. You can claim that we don't have
It's
the
hilarious
dynamics
you think that
to
or you
explain the
say that.
change in. It's the same. It's the same.
It's
Yeah.
not that funny.
Oh yeah, it's the
It's
same, and it doesn't, and none of it happened. You're saying the child with the balloon could be totally stationary, or it could be moving in two different directions, 1,000 miles an hour, one way and the other way, and it seems totally stationary. So it's the same thing as a plane. It seems like it's stationary no matter what the tangential gradient says. That's what you're saying. It doesn't even
how
matter
about you
because you
steel
just think
man?
about
How about
reference.
you steel
You
man that
think about
argument
it
for us?
one what? Just think about it. You're a relativitard. I know that because you just think about one
But
reference
how
frame at
about
a
you? How about
time,
you?
right? Just think about it
Why
as
don't you
one reference frame at a time.
steel man that argument for us? Why don't you steel man that
I
argument
can't
for us? I'd
steel
like to
man
hear you do it.
nonsense. I can't steel man nonsense. To say that the plane doesn't have to
You
worry about the
can't
tangential
steel man.
velocity, there's no way steel manning saying that it doesn't matter.
I mean,
Steel manning is saying,
if you
okay,
can't
I'll
steel
steel
man
man
the
it.
argument,
I'll steel man it. I'll steel man the argument. The plane takes off from a
all right, look,
500 mile per hour latitude where the conserved momentum doesn't matter because the friction from the air and the winds and everything's going to dissipate that 500 miles an hour. But it still doesn't matter because the air moves generally about the same rate, or at least thought to be, with the rotation of the Earth. And we got winds going in all different directions, possibly different rates every single day. But somehow the air mass, generally thought to be in sync with the Earth, is going to accelerate the plane backwards as it's going west southwest, the perfect amount so that the pilot can treat the Earth as stationary, as if it were not moving at all, just like the little girl with the balloon. It could be like it's not moving at all if you think about it that way, and all of these different speeds happen in the background somehow, and the plane can just be going backwards at 1,000 miles an hour because of the air somehow with no dynamics, just a kinematic concept that the air does that, even though the winds go in all directions, and it's just going to carry the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour until it lands facing westward down to 0 miles an hour, and all of that happened. And the pilot just thought it was stationary. He just treated it like it wasn't moving at all, even though it's 500 miles per hour faster than where he took off from. Is that a good steel man?
Yeah, there we have it. Flat earthers don't understand flight.
No, I just steel man exactly what you guys were saying. It was exactly, I understood exactly what he said. That's what Franco said. It's just like the little girl with the balloon. It could be totally stationary or totally moving, and it's the same thing.
Anyway, for those who are interested, I posted 2 videos, kind of like dealing with this situation, and the maths is there, and it's all very good. Try and enjoy it and learn, because you guys are murdering the principle of flight. You guys are on your globe model that doesn't exist.
Amen.
Bearing in
Amen.
mind,
Thanks, Jen.
none of you have presented the curvature of the Earth. Carry on.
Hey,
I don't, like, we have any hope they'll do that. But I got to go, guys. Have a good night.
JFK, headed west-southwest, cause there ain't no better way. Gonna find that old Coriolis, they say she's hidden in the winds, but that just can't be if we rotate east, tangential gradient. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis must be hidden in the winds, but the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been, and we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. And we all know every pilot treats the earth as motionless, so to think it must be moving is just insane, you must confess. But please don't get offended if this song makes too much sense. Just thank God that landing's easy with no tangential gradient in the winds. They said she'd just be hidden in the winds, but the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been, and we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds, and the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we go. So thank God we won't be crashing when those wheels hit down below. Hidden in the winds, there ain't no Coriolis hidden in the winds, and thank God it's stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving with a tangential gradient. Yes, here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds, and their earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been, and thank God we won't be crashing when we touch down at the end. And thank the Lord, earth is stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving. There's no tangential gradient.
Frames. In another frame, they are rotating, they have an acceleration, and if you compute forces in that frame, they will be perfectly consistent. We'll have a centripetal force and so on. So everything, I'm sorry, but everything is consistent, and there's no problem whatsoever. The point is choosing the most convenient frame in order to describe things, and so on. So everything, I'm sorry, but everything is consistent, and there's no problem whatsoever. The point is choosing the most convenient frame in order to describe things. In the rotating frame that's rotating with the Earth, the air is stationary, so since you're moving with respect to the air, then you don't have to take into account any force whatsoever upon. How does the plane change its tangential velocity in that frame, it's because of the air that's moving, because the plane is moving with respect to the air. The air is rotating with the earth. So it's the air that pushing that's providing that force.
To say that the air mass is generally on average going with the surface doesn't isn't even good
Yeah.
enough. If that were true, it's not good enough to make the plane so in sync with 1,000 miles an hour that the pilot can always just assume that he's treating the Earth as perfectly stationary without the forces that would be moving the plane backwards that he would have to deal with. I mean, the aerodynamics wouldn't even work for the air to be pushing the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour as it's slowing to land in the
It's
opposite direction. There's no dynamics there. You can kinematically just say, well, the force is this, and we're going to put a number to it, and that's what it would have to be. So it has to be that because we're on a globe. That's ridiculous. There's no forces going on there.
no,
There's
not
no
that's not
dynamics at all.
ridiculous,
It's
because
playing.
that's sorry, that's physics, and I'm sorry, that's my field, and that I think I know about it. I think I give exams about it. So
No,
please,
you're just doing kinematics, not
please.
forces. Forces are
Well,
physical.
no, no,
Physics is
no,
physical.
no.
You're not
It's no,
explaining the physics of it.
no, no,
You're not explaining how it physically happens. You're
no.
just saying, I'm going to put a number to it, and on paper, I can make it seem like it might work. But there's no forces that you're even naming would work. The air wouldn't be a force moving the plane backwards, carrying it backwards at 1,000 miles an hour. That's not a force you could ever even in any kind of sanity say is what's happening. The plane to explain to a pilot that the air is carrying his plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour when he lands at the facing westward, he would laugh even if he thought he was on a globe because he knows he doesn't have to deal with any of that. He just flies point to point. There's no chasing the target, which would have to happen if it was a globe because it'd be moving faster at the destination than where he took off from. Those are the physics that are be involved. But he just flies straight to his target. Even if he's going west southwest, he's not even have to have a target. He's going to be able to treat the Earth as stationary, and you have to think the air is carrying the plane backwards, even though the plane has a motor going in opposite direction, slowing it down to land. You really believe that?
I couldn't follow. Sorry. What I
You believe
know
that
is physics.
the air is carrying the plane backwards as it lands in the opposite direction. The air is making it go at the same speed as the Earth. Do you believe the air is doing that?
Yes.